time, we are very open to the filmmakers of the world, American, but also coming from all the part of the world, and we have preserved a national cinema industry.
And is this about identity, deep down? That without your own culture, you lose your identity. You lose your soul.
Yes. Our dream, our common dream, is a world of diversity, a world in which the spiritual, intellectual richness are preserved and developed. And it's the reason why I consider that our duty as government of Britain, government of Italy, government of India, government of Pakistan, is to encourage
diversity.
Diversity through positive and concrete measures.
But let's, Becky, in South Africa, you've had an experience of developing your own television film industry, soap operas and so on. What was the experience there? Have you found that you've been completely swamped by American culture?
Yes, before democracy in South Africa, which is only 10 years ago, our television, especially the dramas, were dominated by American soap operas. If you switch on your television between 5:30 and 9, you'd find Dallas, Dynasty, etc., etc., Loving, Bold and the Beautiful. In 10 years, we have completely reversed that trend. You find there's only one American soap opera that remains on our screens, which is The Bold and the Beautiful. All the soap operas you will find in South Africa on peak time now are actually South African soap operas.
So you can fight back in other ways. It doesn't
we feel quite confident. In fact, we are more exposed in terms of American culture than France is, because we have a common language, which is English. And secondly, we have common populations, which is the Africans in America. So we have a lot of commonalities with America, which make us more vulnerable to the Americans. But we have, in terms of television and in terms of music, we're competing with American music, we're competing with American television, and I'm sure soon we'll be competing with American cinema.
Benazir Bhutto, how much, when we talk about American culture, do you think people around the world are really just thinking of American brands, something quite shallow, quite trivial?
Partly they're thinking of American brands, because American brands, for instance, the food which is called junk food actually tastes very good. It's very fast. It's available almost anywhere. American clothes, even if they're imported from the rest of the world, once they're branded, they're much cheaper than other parts of the world. America has an economy of scale, and it's very difficult to compete against a country with that large a scale. It simply dominates. And people might resent it, but it's the ground reality. How to deal with it is a different situation.
And in the end, it tastes good.
In the end, it tastes good.
Saib, do you think America has got a culture?
Coming from the Middle East, you know, we're not threatened by American culture. We gave it all. Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. And I live in a house, I could see the place where Jesus did his fast for 40 days. I come from Jericho, 10,000 years old. But what strikes me is that when I go to Washington, I can go to have the best Arab cuisine in Washington or in San Francisco. Is it a melting pot of cultures? And that's maybe a strength. So on the one hand, we're not threatened by the American movies or the American soap operas or the American products. And at the same time, we feel the essence of history with us as part of it. But I really think that America is a melting pot of cultures, preserving all.
Fareed Zakaria, it's clear there is an American ideology, a belief in free markets and the rule of law and all the rest of it. But do you think it's possible to think American in that sense and yet have a non-American identity? I mean, you were originally come from India, you would now consider yourself American. Can you have a non-American identity and still be part of the American world?
I think it's very difficult to, unless you are American, unless you live in America, because one of the things that has changed in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years is you can see America on television screens, through satellite, through the internet. It seems very easy and accessible. And so you feel as though there's a very easy route to modernity, to westernization. But it turns out it's actually very difficult. You can eat the fast food and drink the fizzy water and watch the movies, but it doesn't make you an American or a Westerner. And I think in some ways the Arab world's frustration with America has been this odd superficial globalization, where they've seen all the superficial aspects of Americanization, but realize that it's actually, it's long and hard work to become modern or Western, and how you achieve that, you know, in a process of years or decades is going to be the great drama, because otherwise there's going to be a great deal of frustration in the world of people wanting to become modern, looking at America, not necessarily to become American, but to get some of the glories, the virtues, but being deeply disappointed.
And without the hard work and the graft. We're going to move on now, because we're going to ask about American economic policies. What have their impact been on the rest of our world? And are they policies that people would like to copy? Well, in a moment, Peter will tell us more. But first, some thoughts, again from around the globe.
The United States' chief interest is in itself. It always has been.
Many of the cultures that I've experienced in my travels have much more focus on family life and their own personal happiness, and I think that gets lost here in America because we're so focused on job and career and providing for our families and getting ahead and financial gain.
It adopts very protective policies towards the U.S. industry, towards U.S. economy, and in the promotion of jobs within the United States.
The United States has, and particularly President Bush, has total disregard for the developing nations.
We're just one of the many countries, third world countries, which are indirectly controlled by the United States through the IMF.
The American economy is the strongest and the largest and the greatest economy in the world. So I would be happy if my country would move the same direction.
Well, you might expect the rest of the world looking at America to regard its powerful economy and relative prosperity with a strong sense of envy. And that appears to be only partly true, though. We ask people, is the USA a better place to live than your country? 9 out of 10 Americans tell us their country is the best, but what about the rest of the world? It's a huge no. 76% believe their own country is a better place to live than America. Well, we went on to ask, is American economic policy making your country richer? A large majority of Americans themselves believe they make the rest of the world richer, and Israel, one of America's prime beneficiaries, unsurprisingly agrees. Those who believe American economic policies make no difference are Britain, Jordan, Russia, and France. The biggest group of countries believes that they're actually poorer as a result of America's economic policies. And that includes America's big next-door neighbor, Canada. You'd be right to suspect that there's worse to come for America's image as the fount of all economic wisdom. Should U.S. economic policy, we asked, be copied in your country? Well, nearly 2/3 of Americans believe that the world does indeed want to copy their policies. But they're bluntly snubbed by all the other countries who, by large majorities, say they do not want their countries to copy U.S. economic policies. But America's prosperity does attract some positive response from the people we spoke to. We put a number of U.S. achievements to them, and we asked whether they thought their countries should aspire to them too. And here people say they do indeed want to echo American progress in science and technology. 67% envy America's innovation in this field. The economic opportunities that the USA offers its people are the envy of 56%, and 40% would like their country to achieve America's freedom of expression. So, plenty of evidence that the rest of the world covets the American dream, or parts of it anyway. Let's get reaction from our international broadcast partners. Peter Mansbridge is with the next-door neighbours in Canada. Peter.
Hello, Peter, and welcome from the mouse that lives next door to the elephant, as Pierre Trudeau used to describe the relationship. We feel every move. 62% of Canadians would like the economic opportunities of Americans. And, you know, there's a lot of practical evidence to support that. It's one of the ongoing stories of our national life, what we call the brain drain. Every year, doctors, nurses, teachers, scientists, thousands of them move to the United States. And certainly many of them move because they see that they can make more money. Not only might salaries be higher, but taxes are definitely lower and the cost of living is lower. But you see another part of the poll that overwhelmingly Canadians don't think the United States is a better place to live than Canada. So you can put the two together and conclude that some Canadians like the economic opportunities in the United States and move there to take advantage of them, but most aren't willing to give up Canada. So they wish those economic opportunities existed right here. Now, the other interesting question is the one asking if American economic policies have made Canada richer or poorer. And Canadians said poorer 40% to 31%. This hits on another touchstone of national debate in this country. The free trade agreement signed with the United States 15 years ago has clearly expanded our exports, and many, many Canadians will tell you how lucky we are to have access to the American market. But there are some U.S. economic policies that drive Canada batty. We call them irritants. One is a seemingly never-ending dispute over softwood lumber, for example. The Americans say our government subsidizes the industry, so they slap on a tariff. Canada complains to the World Trade Organization, that's an international referee, but it never seems to get resolved. And this goes on in a few other industries too. What Canada sees as protectionist policies in the United States. That's why you might be seeing so many Canadians saying U.S. policies make us poorer. That's the view in Canada. Back to you in London.
Thank you, Peter. Now to Indonesia and Fifi Aleda Yahya. Fifi.
Peter, on the question of which the following things about America do you think your country should aspire to, 55% respondents think that Indonesia should aspire to achieve economic opportunities for the people. This result can be understood if we take a close look at the Indonesian economy, which has been in crisis since 1997. Although things are looking up, the crisis has left the country's economy in tatters with huge problems. One of the most significant is unemployment. The view of the majority of Indonesians regarding the United States is that America is a rich country and a land of opportunity for those willing to work. So in this respect, Indonesia can learn many things from the US on how to create economic opportunities. Interestingly enough, however, 44% respondents in Indonesia think that American economic policy actually makes Indonesia poorer. Why? The answer deals more with Indonesia's general perception regarding the US. While there is admiration for American products and culture, there is a feeling that the United States is an arrogant power whose policies and actions create a negative impact on Indonesia. Free trade is seen as benefiting the US more, as non-tariff regulations are making it difficult for Indonesian products to enter the American domestic market. At the same time, Indonesia's dependency on foreign loans such as the IMF is popularly seen as burdening the people, as international lenders demand the lifting of subsidies on basic goods that often result in increase in prices and the cost of living of the ordinary Indonesian. And back to London.
Fifi, thank you very much. And now, from the Far East to Latin America, and again, Renato Machado in Brazil. Renato.
Well, Peter, a very significant majority, actually 72%, think Brazil should have the same economic opportunities Americans do. I believe this is a direct result of a long-standing admiration of American values and also American dreams, as seen in movies, shows, and television. In fact, all the American culture as a whole since Disney days. On the economic front, the superior quality of American lifestyle also has a distinctive weight. At the same time, many people, as a matter of fact, nearly half, think American economic policies have contributed to make Brazil a poorer country. Well, this, I suspect, also has to do with the perception of America as a country of businessmen, bankers, who have the last word on the global economy. There is another figure which also is a bit puzzling. A big majority would not like to live in the United States, although a quarter of Brazilians would if they had the chance. For those who do, or do not accept to live in the United States, Brazil is their home.